Hey guys, it's Danny. Today, 'tis the day when we recap all of the orchids in bloom in 2019. Not really. Only the ones you guys chose as winners for each month. So we're gonna take a look at 12 of my orchids that bloomed last year, and you will have to vote once again today for the ultimate orchid, the Orchid of the Year 2019. It's a little tradition we've been doing for a few years already. It's kind of fun, helps me a little bit too to gear my video topics, and well, it's just fun to vote. So without further ado, here are your favorite orchids out of my collection. In January, most of you voted for the Cattleychea Siam Jade, which was surprising. I was actually expecting the Bulbophyllum to win. Oh, P.S. If you missed those videos and you don't know what I'm talking about, I will be sure to link all of them down below in the description. And well, what do you know? It is January, be it end of January, and the Siam Jade is starting to bloom once again. It will probably be in full bloom in February this year. But yeah, here she is doing great still in my collection. This is a wonderful green colored Cattleyea. I do love green flowers. I'm not a super huge fan of the yellowish green color or the very pale washed out green, but lime green is wonderful. Not only that, this orchid smells delightful as well, and that contrast with the whitish lip is just adorable. Flowers are waxy and sturdy, and overall the show is absolutely fantastic. There is another version of this orchid which is pyloric, and this one is actually mislabeled. This one should have been that variety which is pyloric, but it's not, and I'm happy about it. But just so you know, there is a pyloric variety as well. If you like that more, go for it. This orchid is still recovering, believe it or not. She is capable of producing more flowers than this, but she's looking great, and I do suspect the next growth will be taller than this particular one. It's one of the very few Cattleyas which actually did not adjust very well to semi-hydro when I used to do that setup, but with the traditional organic medium she seems to do better because I can keep her much more hydrated, and that matters. So first entry on the voting sheets, the Cattleychea Siam Jade. In February, your pick was Recchara Frances Fox, currently reclassified as Masdevallia. Funny thing, she was the Orchid of the Year in 2017, and I am not surprised. She is wonderful, amongst my very favorite orchids that I own. At some point she was also recovering because I got this as a tiny division. And this year I am hoping that she will produce a nice flower spike from this new growth, which looks pretty promising. And as I was saying, the orchid herself is very healthy. Obviously, she's a Cattleyea, and cats do very well in this climate since it's kind of close to what their ancestors actually experienced in nature. Now, the Frances Fox is a wonderful autumn-colored orchid with oranges and browns and even purples in the flowers. They have very wild-looking flowers and a wonderful fragrance during nighttime. Since this is a Brassavola hybrid, to my nose smells exactly like a Brassavola, which has a soapy, but in the good way, type of fragrance during nighttime, of course. Anyway, happy to see that you guys voted for her, and of course, if you think she deserves another title, then you can vote for her down below. In March, your vote went to the wonderful, fantastic, fabulous Rhynchostylis monachica. Again, one of my favorites. All of my orchids are my favorites, kinda, but there are some which I favor a little more. Does that make sense? Anyway, the monachica is a wonderful, kind of orangey colored flowered orchid yet again. It has, in my opinion, one of the wildest shaped flowers that I have in my collection, together with the Bulbophyllums, which you will see in today's video as well. And there is also a very slight mild fragrance. This is not a very perfumed orchid. If you're one of those people who actually does have a reaction to perfume, I do think you can get away with this one as long as you just don't stick your nose into the flower and inhale. You will detect something there, very mild. Other than that, it will not fill up a room. Funny story with the Rhynchostylis, ever since I started my YouTube channel, I wanted this orchid, and I tried with a very sickly individual, which never did great for me. For 5 years, no matter what I did, it just simply did not want to flourish. And I eventually gave up on it because there are instances in which it's not up to us, it is up to them. So I purchased this one as a young orchid, and oh boy, she grows super fast. She's super vigorous and blooms every year. Around this time, you can see we have a flower spike now. We also have a little branch here, so hopefully the show will be a little better than last year. This is definitely a spring blooming orchid. And for me, up until now, it only bloomed once a year, which, as I understand, is normal. For April, the winner is an orchid that I probably wouldn't have picked, but hey, this is your contest. The winner was Phalaenopsis Malibu Madonna. During that month, we had a lot of Phalaenopsis in full bloom, looking wonderful. We also had the Vinegar Apple Blossom, which was Orchid of the Year 2018, but no, you guys voted for this one. It's a wonderful Phalaenopsis. It has a beautiful lavender color and the lip is lighter than the actual petals and sepals. It does not have any fragrance, which is typical with flower shop Phalaenopsis, and it produces kind of large flowers. It's prone to having that wonderful cascade. It's overall a really lovely orchid. But as you can tell, it's a very large orchid, like all of these phals. It produces a lot of roots. It can go pretty wild. So it does take up a lot of space. You really need to like this orchid in order to have it. Luckily, I do like it. I'm just quite surprised that it's the winner. And I'm really curious if it will be the Orchid of the Year. Only you can decide. Now for May, sadly, there's nothing to show except my little podium here, and this is because I actually lost the winner for the month of May. It was the Masdevallia glandulosa, beautiful fragrant Masdevallia orchid, but after quite a few tries with Masdevallias, I discovered that they're just not suited for this climate. Masdevallias are rather cool growing orchids, and even though there are those orchids which are cooler growing but very tolerant to intermediate temperatures, kind of tolerant to some extremes from time to time, Masdevallias are really not one of them. Yes, I did lose that orchid during the summer of last year, and until I actually have a proper budget with a proper plan of a cool room, maybe at some point, I don't want to spend my money on Masdevallias anymore because the incompatibility with the climate is absolutely clear to me. I tried it enough. She still deserves to be in today's video because she is wonderful, and I'm really sad that I cannot pull off Masdevallias. Nonetheless, for those of you who live in cooler climates than mine and have quite a bit of orchid knowledge, it's not a beginner orchid, I can definitely recommend it. The flowers are beautiful, the fragrance is beautiful as well. I think you might be able to get away with it in more intermediate environments as well, but if you have summers in which daytime and nighttime temperatures are pretty much the same, no, it's not gonna work out without proper investment. And what can I say? We just can't have them all. But moving on to the month of June, the winner is one of the sweetest orchids that I own, name-wise and flower-wise. This is the Bulbophyllum Daisy Chain, and this one is doing fantastic in my climate because it's not a cool grower. The name actually reflects a little bit on its flowers. Its flowers remind me of daisies, and they are just wonderful. They don't last all that long, sadly. They last maybe 5 days or so, and then they start to wither off. But this orchid seems to produce a lot of them. I have so many flower spike remains from last year, which I will need to go and remove, but it's not harming anything. It's just not looking all that great. And the blooming period extends to maybe 2 months even. So I did have successively flower spikes from older pseudobulbs and newer pseudobulbs. And I'm really curious to see the flower display this year because I do have new growth, which is not necessarily mature yet. I want to see for certain if the older growths actually produce the flowers rather than the just matured growths. I'm not yet very sure on that because it's not a very old orchid in my collection. Anyway, back to the flowers. They're not fragrant, but oh boy are they beautiful. And I'm really happy you guys voted for it because it really is a joy to grow. It takes the same care as a Phalaenopsis actually. Intermediate, warmish temperatures, not so much light, bright shade is perfect. I currently have it under my LED panel, or actually I moved it under the LED tube. It likes moisture like any other Bulbophyllum, and because it has this rambling nature, I actually put it in a food container, which is rather wide and shallow. And these are just some containers or decorative pots, if you will, from IKEA, which just make a perfect fit with this little pot. There is enough wiggle room here for air circulation, and it's just perfect. The winner for July is the Ascofinetia Peaches, which I adore so much. Too bad it only blooms once a year. It is actually a Neophonetia hybrid, and as I was saying, I do want to focus quite a lot on Neophonetias this year and make it look a little bit more professional. We'll get to that. What you see on this orchid is a lot of Maya and Joey feathers, because this one sits very, very close to the cage, and because of the happy sap on the leaves, you can see that on this side I have quite a lot of feathers from my girls. It doesn't affect anything, and in springtime I'm just gonna shower them off. Anyway, Ascofinetia Peaches. It looks like a Neophonetia or Neophonetia, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but it's kind of red, peachy, coral colored. Did I tell you guys that I love coral as a color? It's not something that you usually or typically find with orchids. You have more chances of finding orange or red flowers than coral flowers. Well, this one comes close, and it's the only orchid with this shade that I have in my collection, and I adore it. There is also a fragrance, which I just don't remember right now, but in the video with this one, I'm sure I mentioned the fragrance. I think it's a sweet fragrance. It has a lovely, mild kind of fragrance, which is a bonus, but for me, the flower display is what sells this orchid. If you love Vandas, if you love Neos, I think this hybrid is a winner. I love it, and that coral color, it's wonderful. It's unique in my entire collection. Our winner for August is the Patinara Burana Beauty. This is a Cattleyea type orchid, and she is adorable. It's one of the more popular hybrids in my opinion. I actually heard about it from Brad many years ago, and I've kept my eye open for it. Finally, I managed to find it about 2 years ago. And if I show you the video when I received this orchid, you would not believe this is the very same one. It was so tiny, so I'll link it in the description. It's the video where I exemplified how to remove sphagnum moss from roots. That's how I know how tiny she used to be, because I have her on film. Anyway, Burana Beauty is a wonderful yellow flower with red splashes, but I do believe the most popular thing about it is the fragrance. It is out of this world. If you love fragrance, I think you will adore this one. Bonus, it is a vigorous grower, grows multiple growths per year, can bloom multiple times per year, obviously. And really, she's just gonna take over any pot you put her in. I think when I purchased her, she was a quarter of what she is now, and that was only a year and a half or two ago. Not all that long ago if you consider other Cattleyea types that I have in my collection, which barely moved in 2 years. So definitely it is a hybrid to have. Again, very good for beginners. If you have what Cattleya's like, will it win Orchid of the Year? It's up for you guys to decide. September's winner is a really special orchid for me. It's the Rhynchostylis coelestis Blue. This was amongst the first Vandas that I purchased many years ago, and it's not this particular one. The one that I had developed a really nasty fungal infection that I could not get rid of, and I've always craved to have this one again because it has partially blue flowers. And when I say blue, I really mean blue. Yes, it's not ink blue, but it's very close. It's not that purple. And this year, or actually last year, she had the greatest flower show she had ever since I purchased her 2 years ago. It blooms once a year, once again, but the bloom show is fantastic. It produces at least 2 flower spike per fan, and it has multiple fans because it has keikis. It has 3 fans, 2 of them bloomed because they're mature enough, and I'm hoping this year this little guy will bloom as well. Do you remember she was a little dehydrated? Yeah, when she's in bloom, she gets a little dehydrated, she needs more water, and in that basket, I just simply couldn't. But the potting up did her good, and she's looking very perky now, very well. She's not a fast grower by any stretch of the imagination, but she seems to be quite vigorous. The flowers are also slightly fragrant. They have a spring flower type of scent to them, kind of sweet, kind of floral. But the main attraction, hands down, are the flowers. It's one of the few blue orchids that I have seen. But I will remind you once again, it's not ink blue. No matter what you might see on the screen or in pictures on the internet, cameras have a little bit of an issue capturing the true color. It is at the end of the day a bluish purple, but I assure you it is exquisite. Your top pick for October was the Cattleya nodosa crossed with the Cattleya purpurata variety carnea, which is a purpurata that I want to have in my collection sooner or later. But it's rather expensive. Anyway, this is a wonderful Cattleya type orchid. I'm not surprised you guys voted for it so much because the flower looks elegant and wild at the same time. It is an orchid which is still recovering. Hopefully you can see the tinier pseudobulbs in the back and the latest one this year looking a lot bigger. Not as big as it should be, but it is going very, very well. Root system is impressive already on this orchid. And as I was saying, the flower is just elegant. There is also a fragrance, smells more like the purpurata if you have that orchid, meaning it's rather sweet and floral, reminds me to some extent of the nobly dendrobiums, and has nothing from the Brassavola when it comes to fragrance, which I'm sure for some of you is a great news because not everybody likes the Brassavola fragrance. Overall, this orchid did not show me its full potential just yet, but I'm waiting for it. I only had one bloom at a time, which is not normal. It should have more than that. But as you can see, it has been quite stressed in the past, so I think we can expect for even greater things from this orchid. The winning orchid for November is and isn't surprising. It's the Dendrobium Thailand Black, and what do you know? It's still in bloom, yeah, after all of these months. A few flowers have faded, but I think it's still looking great, and bonus, I had a little tiny flower spike in the back here from an older cane. It's a wonderful orchid and the color is really, really nice. Flowers are velvety, there isn't a huge fragrance on it. Actually, there is almost no fragrance at all, but I did hear people saying that they detect a little bit of something there. I wouldn't call it a perfumey orchid though. But the main attraction, of course, is the color of the flowers, the velvety texture, especially inside the lip here, and the vigorousness of this hybrid altogether. It's still in bloom and it's still looking great because I am keeping it in very, very bright light. I learned my lesson. These are not low light orchids, not even during winter. I can definitely tell the difference in growth when it comes to the quantity of light that I give them. Apart from that, these are the most heat tolerant orchids that I have. I can throw them in an oven and they would be okay. Obviously, it's an exaggeration, but sometimes for me, summer feels like a never-ending oven. Oh, they love it. And the more orchids I can put outside, the better, because my greenhouse will not be so cluttered. And lastly, the winner of December, which was last month, is the Cattleya Chantilly Lace Twinkle, which sadly lost its buds. Not entirely sure why, but I have a funny suspicion it was because at the same time as it was in bloom with these flowers, it was maturing and producing another flower spike, and it was just a little bit too soon. This was the first flowering of this orchid. She's a young orchid, so I'm guessing it was a little bit too much stress. And you can see there are only 2 buds here, so definitely there was a lack of energy going on. But it's okay, I can wait a few months, I don't need flowers right now. The problem is, oh no, the orchid reached the end of the pot, it needs repotting. It is a faster grower than I imagined, I have to say, but the flowers are absolutely delightful, and not only do they look spectacular, they're peloric, they have that lacy pattern, they also have one of the most magical fragrances that I have in my collection. They smell like the Cattleyea Princess Jackie quotation marks. As the flowers age though, the fragrance becomes very, very soapy. It's still interesting, just not my thing. But for about 2 weeks or so, I think you're gonna absolutely love the fragrance on this orchid. It's also powerful, so mind you, if you have a scent sensitivity, maybe this one is not for you, or maybe you can put it in a different room, but it's kind of fragrant. It's actually very fragrant. But I'm seriously not surprised that you guys chose it. And with that said, I think it's time to wrap up this video. So these have been your most favorite orchids throughout the year last year. I will remind you that you have a link down below in the description with a poll where you can vote for your favorite one. And I'll come back with your decision in about a week or a little bit more when we're gonna make the Orchids in Bloom in January video, and the whole voting process will start once again. Hey, don't eat my hangers. Maya. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. You know the drill, like or dislike it below. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, and recaps of the sorts. I post a few times a week at least. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!